everybody. Welcome, and thanks, Sarah, for having us again. Today we're going to do the Bar Hop Brewing Judge Porter because Bar Hop is the first, craft brewery post-prohibition to really thrive in Port Angeles. And so they've been huge supporters of my shop for a long time. Tom Curry, the founder of Bar Hop, who started it in about 2010. He's a longtime home brewer, and so that's something that's near and dear to my heart because that's a section of my business that I haven't talked about yet, which is the home brewing supplies and sales. So that's how we started for about 4 years before we started selling beer. But anyways, yeah, Tom and Bar Hop, they've been super supportive. They have great beer. They're located downtown, right on the waterfront by the ferry terminal, and they also have a new restaurant called The Rail in Port Angeles, and they're opening a spot in Squim, actually, so that's pretty exciting. So look for that. But all right, we'll get to the beer. So Bar Hop Judge Porter is an American porter. So that means the flavor profile you're going to get out of most of these is, a nose of kind of some mild roasted grains, a little bit of chocolate, maybe even a little bit of toffee, a little bit of maybe some undertones of like some coffee or licorice. The beer should be, thin, not super thick mouthfeel, but the flavors should be always kind of mild and shouldn't have any harsh bitterness notes. And I think this beer does a good job of kind of checking all those boxes and being very smooth and just really easy to drink. It's a cool style of beer. It's been around for a long time. All historical data kind of points to the London area in the early 1700s for the creation of this beer, but it was really kind of kickstarted in 1817-ish when the invention of the malt roaster, which basically they take malt. Most brewing malt is the same malt, but they roast it and heat it up to different levels to create different colors and different flavor profiles from the malt will come out. So this wasn't invented until 1817. So they were able to finally make the malt black, and so that's what colors the beer, gives it that kind of roasty and chocolatey character. So that's original style, and it kind of like drifted into other regions. It made its way to Ireland. Guinness started brewing it. Made its way to Russia. Russians kind of ramped it up and made it super aggressive, and Germany brewed a style that was closer to like a darker lager, bottom fermented beer. But the Russian variant became known as the Imperial Stout, because it evolved from a stout imported from England. And it's at this time, the term stout and porter were pretty interchangeable. There's not much difference, or the other answer is depends on who you ask for the stylistic kind of difference between these two beers. But I think more so than any other two styles, the crossovers and interwine history are stronger than really any other two beer styles. So typically stout, the difference now, stout would be more dry, sweet, drier, with maybe a little more lingering bitterness from the roast, like overly roasty character, where a porter will be typically a little bit sweeter, which is this beer actually does a really good job because you don't get it like overly amount of roasted barley. You get a little bit of sweetness, and I definitely taste a lot of that toffee and chocolate. It's really nice and silky. So yeah, it's kind of a moot point. One of the most famous beer writers his name was actually Michael Jackson, and he described the comparison as in unambiguous as a horoscope. So take that for what it is. Kind of interesting. But yeah, that's the porter, and something like food you pair with this. It's a good food beer. Looking for similarities, smoked foods would be great. Barbecue sausages, rich stews, meats, bacon, chili, anything braised. All work really well with this beer. So it's very versatile and super good beer to cook with in the fall and in winter when you can have these really good smoked meats and heavier dishes. It's delicious.
West is full of ghosts. The ghosts of woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. The ghosts of, I'm missing a slide. Oh well, the ghosts of those on the Trail of Tears who lost in the collisions of the westward expansion and manifest destiny. The ghosts of thriving towns sprung up by hopeful folks and later abandoned when the rain didn't fall, the resources ran out, or were just too far off the beaten path. The ghosts of 30 to 60 million buffalo slaughtered for their hides and to deprive many Indian tribes of their traditional food and shelter source to make them become ghosts as well. There's the manifest destiny one. The ghosts of mountains turned to rubble by ghost seekers with no thought for anything but bright nuggets. The ghosts of rivers that in washing away those mountains washed away themselves. The ghosts of 15 to 20,000 Chinese workers who died in building the Continental Railroad. And how do we deal with these ghosts and the stories they want or need to tell us? How much of These Hills is Gold is set in California in the twilight of the American gold rush. Lucy 12 and Sam 11 are on the run with a pistol, the decomposing body of their father packed into their mother's trunk, strapped to a horse that they stole from the local school teacher. The land is unforgiving and they struggle to stay alive in a desiccated landscape to find a place to bury their father, to claim a home. It's not easy to do when they are Chinese in the late 1840s and only have experienced failure in fulfilling the promise of striking it rich, or at least living free as promised in the American dream. Ba, father in Mandarin, has been a prospector in a place where the gold rush was over before they got there. Unwelcome because of their race, he ends up mining coal instead. Sam's dreams of being a cowboy coexist with the naked racism that Ba endures. But Sam and Lucy do live the romantic wish to be outlaws as they flee with Ba's body to bury him and put his soul to rest. When they come to the spot, a place where he once discovered a big nugget and a tiger marked him, Ba's ghost told Lucy her parents' backstory, their origins, their gold-fueled successes, their downfall when they lose their mother. They hope that this spot, with the ghost at rest, will be where they can find their own place, the place where they belong. Instead, Sam disappears to carve out a different life than the one they fled, and once again, the girls are rootless. The story then jumps ahead 5 years with Sam off adventuring as a man and Lucy acting as a companion to a wealthy white woman. Sam returns unexpectedly and ignites a new chain of events that forces Lucy to make a terrible decision. This is Zhang's debut novel, and Ba haunts the novel in the same way that Addie Bundren does in Faulkner's As I Lay Dying. As in Faulkner, the land is as great a present as any living character, and time is elastic. The readers should come to this book with a perpetual sense of longing and disappointment, much the same way that Steinbeck wrote about the desired outcome for the Grapes of Wrath. He said, "I've done my damnedest to rip the reader's nerves to rags." This is a remarkable coming of age book that is perfectly positioned for these times. The journey of these two children and the backstories of their parents force us to confront just how white the history we've been taught is. Aside from fictitious, some fanciful inventions, some hateful lies about Native Americans, we don't hear much about the experiences of people of color and immigrants in the shaping of the West. Zhang asks readers to acknowledge a legacy that we've been taught to ignore by unspooling sophisticated ideas around land, ownership, gender, rootedness, which history gets to be included in the canon. This is not the history the teacher Lay taught, where the names and dates orderly as bricks stacked to build a civilization. Instead, it's a counter to those orderly histories, which leave out what was there before progress came to California hills, and what is lost when it did. It is clear that unlike Woody Guthrie's 1944, this land is your land, this land is not shared. How Much Gold in These Hills is long listed for the Booker Prize, nominated for the Leonard Prize for the best first book from the National Book Critics Circle, and has won the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature for Adult Fiction. And this is actually published as a YA novel, but any age group could read it, and I would encourage everyone to do so.
Okay, thank you, Eve. Yeah, the number of awards that this is getting for a debut novel was really exciting. The author was born in Beijing, but moved to the US around age 4 and has lived in a lot of different places. I listened to the snippet for the audio. It's got dual narrators. Catherine Ho is a New York-based actress with stage experience, and she has narrated numerous Asian American and Pacific Islander titles, including Last Tang Standing by Lauren Ho, which was a popular title from last year. And then the second narrator is Joel De La Fuente, who also has narrated a number of API titles, including Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu, which was another popular title from last year. Those are available, like I said there. I didn't time it like this necessarily, just happened to be happenstance. But there was several author events related to this book within the last couple of weeks because the paperback came out recently. And so there were some interviews with the author that were really interesting to listen to. In one, she said, in talking about how the landscape jumps out at the reader, she talked about how the landscape was mythical and less realistically textured, which I thought was really interesting, how kind of the landscape might become its own part of the story, like how it was in 142 Ostriches last week. I hope everybody's having a good time. It seems like fun. So people have asked what I was looking for when I put the books together. In this case, I was looking at the Judge Porter being described as robust and dark, but balanced. Eve, since I haven't read the book, how do you feel about those tasting notes?
I think as far as how far the beer pairs with this, it really is the hopes and dreams that they have rather than the reality that they experience. And there is a great deal of imagination in this book that comes through the characters, what they want for themselves, and then what actually happens, kind of takes you back to a bitter IPA. But in the meantime, you have that wonderful feeling of robustness through the flavor. Yeah.
I guess some reviewers have described the ending of this as a bit ambiguous, but the author doesn't feel like that. She said that she feels like Lucy is finally at the beginning of her self-determination, of being able to articulate her own desires. So I haven't read the book, I'm not sure, but it sounds like that's, if you read reviews, that ambiguous ending might be something that some readers have felt, but it's certainly not what the author was seeing in the book.